What's up? Welcome to the Deadlifts and Pizza podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Jaime.
And I'm Laura.
Awesome. I think I'm going to get Botox. Have I told you that?
No.
I think I'm going to get Botox. I think I'm going to do it.
Why?
Why? It's such a big question. Like, why? The main reason why is because I have like the 11s right here, and I have fine lines and small lines, all normal, right?
That just happens as you get older.
Exactly. I'm aware. I've also and I don't know how you process all this stuff, but I've always been a minimalist in terms of like makeup. Like even now I wear makeup, but it's very minimalist. Like I just take a face lotion and I mix it with like I don't know, what's it called? Concealer. It's like a different colored stuff in a little bottle. And I mix it just with face lotion and I just kind of smear it on with my fingertips. And then I put on some mascara. Like that's the extent of my makeup. But I've crossed a line. I would like never wear makeup unless it was a special occasion. And even then it would be like mascara and that would be like a big deal. But I've kind of crossed the line into feeling like when I look at myself in the mirror, I don't like the way I look without it. So to the point where I've slowly found myself wearing it every single day. Like it's part of my morning routine and it didn't used to be that way. And I think that that's my kind of natural response to looking in the mirror and seeing like the changes in my skin and all that stuff. I've started to use skincare, which has like changed a lot of like how I feel. So it's been this like shifting process. And I really don't like wearing makeup. Like I'm not somebody that wants to go shopping at Sephora. I'm not interested in any of that. But I like the way people look when they wear it. But I realized that like there's just certain things that I think I've also been like talking to so many people that I'm surprised to use Botox because it doesn't look like they do at all. Like they use such a minimal amount. And I was just talking to a friend of mine in the neighborhood who like, she's just like the coolest, most laid back person. And I just randomly throw like, I'm thinking about doing Botox. She's like, oh, you should totally do it. Like I do it. And her forehead looks amazing. And I'm in Korea. So like, it seems like so many people do it and it's very like preventative too, in terms of like creating new lines. And I feel like I might feel better about wearing less makeup if I had just some help, like reducing the appearance of those lines as we go on. Do you know what I mean in life?
Sure.
What do you think?
Like, I mean, that's up to you if you want to.
Would you ever consider anything like that?
No.
Why?
Because I'm like how do I say it? Like I don't pay attention to that kind of stuff. Like I notice things. Like I have lines on my forehead that drive me crazy, but I would never change it. It's like, this is me aging. This is what supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And like, that's why I'm not the scrunch butt leggings person. Like it's not me.
Yeah.
To worry about that. Like I don't like that. Like I look older sometimes, but it wouldn't be something that I would change, or it would feel, to me, this is me personally, it would feel like fake.
Yeah.
To be perfectly authentic, and I don't like being fake, and I couldn't do something that felt fake.
Yeah. No, I'm with you because there's a big part of me that feels that way too. Like I logically, like that's all, I've always been very simple. I've always been very like whatever. I've always said when my hair goes gray, I'm just going to let it go gray. Yeah. And now when I'm like panic looking for a gray hair, I'm like, there's no way I would let my hair go. Like I'm just starting to realize these things. And I think too, it's like realizing that the barrier between doing some things that would make me feel better when I look in the mirror, there's really not a lot of friction there. Like I said, I'm in Korea, so getting Botox and skincare and all that stuff is incredibly affordable and very like widespread. And so I think, yeah, it's just these like tiny micro changes all the time. So all of a sudden I find myself considering, and just like I've heard, and I've also learned, because I didn't know this, I thought Botox and fillers were the same thing. So when I saw people with those big lips, I call them hot dog lips, but I always thought that was Botox. And I've realized that that's not what Botox is. So I didn't know that before. But so I don't want fillers or anything, but Botox would be like, it relaxes those, the muscles there that cause you to make all the, and you can still make expressions, especially if you get like a low dose of Botox, you can still make expressions, but it relaxes everything there so that then And people have always said I have a rubber face. Like I make a lot of expressions,
Yeah.
and all the lines from those expressions are just more evident now. And I'm just like, maybe I might consider doing this. So
If
yeah.
that makes you happy.
You know what's interesting too is I was randomly scrolling, and again, you and I talk about like why does the Instagram feed show us what it shows us? And I think I always thought that what it shows me is generally what it shows other people. And because sometimes I'll have friends send me like reels and TikToks that are things I've already seen. So in my mind, I'm like, oh, these are just ones everybody sees. But then when you start telling me what you see, I'm like, that's not what I see. So that's interesting.
We're not the
But
same.
not the same. Not the same. But I saw for some reason, I guess Drew Barrymore has a talk show now. For some reason, probably because I watched this one reel, and now it's showing me all of these clips from Drew Barrymore's talk show. But she was interviewing Pamela Anderson, and I would not have recognized Pamela Anderson because she had not a lick of makeup on. She was very covered up. She's older, right, too. So like she just looks different because she's older. But the clip that I watched was very specifically Pamela Anderson and why she has decided to ditch makeup and her process of, this event that she went to and where she realized she didn't want to cover up anymore. She wants to really find herself. She felt like her doing Playboy and all that stuff was really just like a front for this like intense shyness and all this stuff. So it's kind of delving into her story a little bit. But the point was that she has purposely decided to never wear any sort of makeup. And looking at her face while she was talking was fascinating because I was like, and then you hear her voice and it's like, yeah, that's Pamela Anderson, but you wouldn't recognize her, right? She doesn't look the same, but you can tell that she does stuff to her face. She's not wearing any makeup, but she's done stuff to her face and probably still actively maybe gets Botox and things. But it almost appeals to me in a similar way that like earrings appeal to me. And I know that sounds silly, but like I can put on earrings and I instantly feel like no matter what I'm wearing, whether I have makeup or not, I instantly feel like a little dressed up. And it was a very easy thing to do. The idea of Botox feels a little bit like that to me. Like I don't have to put on any makeup. I can just have a hoodie, but like my face looks good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's where I'm at.
I don't know why I have like, because I haven't in a while, but I'll highlight my hair and that's fine.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm willing to do something like that. Maybe because it's not like permanent, or I don't know. I don't know what the difference is, but
Yeah, I always think about that. What is the difference between the different ways that
and what's the
uh,
difference between makeup in that?
yeah, the ways that we intentionally try to make ourselves look better, whether it's through diet and exercise or through your hair and hairstyle or jewelry or makeup or Botox and then even leading into maybe even plastic surgery. Like there's all kinds of levels that we individually, and some people do them all, right? And other people pick and choose their thing. So some people are real big into makeup and somebody else might hardly wear any makeup, but they do like plastic surgery or Botox. Some people don't really care about the clothes they're wearing. You'll see people. It's like I see this like contrast on social media where I'll see these, influencers, I call them, who are wearing so much makeup, but their clothing choice is like very. I don't want to say frumpy because that has a negative connotation, but it's like an oversized hoodie and sweatpants. It's like they're not putting a lot of thought into their outfit, but man, did they spend like 2 hours on their face and hair, right?
Yeah, that's true.
But then you'll see other people, and this kind of lines up more with me. Like I'll pick out my outfit a little bit more specifically. Like I want to like really look cute and highlight, the things that I want to highlight. But like I'm not wearing any makeup, then I'll throw my hair in a bun, and like I like the way that looks a lot of the time. It's interesting what we tend to pick and choose,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think like making yourself look better through like diet and exercise. I feel like that's different because it doesn't have that like fakeness to it.
Yeah, what like everything else is. I mean, clothing isn't technically
No,
fake.
I'm talking about like comparing it to like Botox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Botox, that's the thing is that you cannot even tell that somebody has Botox.
I'm not
I
saying
see
they look
like
fake.
20 something year olds on Instagram come with me to go get my needles in my face. I'm like, oh shit, should I have started then? I think it's a matter of how much you get, because you can actually get a lot to the point where people like can't even raise their eyebrows. There's like no expression. But if you
Mhm.
just get, I was talking to this friend I was telling you about in the neighborhood. If you just get it, she said that when you first go, they will put it in certain areas, and then you come back 2 weeks later and they put it in different areas, and they kind of test what your body, how your body metabolizes it, and then they just put it in certain areas to relax, but still so that you're able to make expressions and everything. And it's fascinating, I guess, kind of how far we've come with the science too, because you literally can't. This person that I'm talking about, she raises her eyebrows, she smiles, she laughs, all the things, but not a single line. And she showed me a picture before she got it, and she had those same like fine lines all here. They're completely gone, and she doesn't look fake like at all. She looks
Mhm.
incredibly like natural. It's just interesting.
Yeah.
So anyway, TBD.
So I decided to stop the quad program because
Yeah, you said that.
I didn't
You're
say I was
done.
going to stop, but I
Well,
said,
I got the sense from your thing. You said I'm
yeah.
done with this program, so I assumed that's what that meant.
But that could just be me saying that and going back tomorrow. But yeah, I just don't feel I feel like it's time to switch to something else because I just that you know how last week you were saying you lost your mojo. That's how I feel. I need to switch it up because I'm not going into it with the same intensity as before. So I'm going to switch to doing deadlifts, focusing on getting to a 300-pound deadlift, and I'm going to add some hit in there.
Oh,
But
cool.
originally I said I was going to do it 3 days. I'm going to do it 4 days. 4 days full body. I really like full body because
Phew.
I just feel like I recover so much better when I do it that way, and I don't feel dead
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not doing all legs in in one workout. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm going to do 4 full body and then a hit workout too in the middle of
Cool.
them.
What is your hit going to be?
Um, right now it's just like different exercises like squat jumps and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And taking longer
Cool.
breaks. And I'm going to right now I just kind of programmed them all, but I'm going to change the rest times because in the app it like does it where it's timed and you wait for the timer and then you go on to the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to leave it at like I don't remember what I put it at, but a longer break, and then as I get better, the breaks will become smaller and smaller.
Yeah. Are you gonna? Do you have a Fitbit? Do you have a Fitbit?
Hmm.
Do you track your heart rate via
I mean, it
that?
does track my heart rate, but I never like I don't know. People use it to do like they'll record their workouts, all that. Like I
Uh
don't pay
huh.
attention. I don't really pay attention to it.
Well, what I'm wanting now, so my Fitbit died. Basically, the screen died,
Hmm.
which is really annoying because I only had it for like a year. And my other Fitbits, the same thing happened, but I only had that one for a year, and I just assumed that one was a fluke. So I bought another Fitbit, like the brand. And now I'm like, I don't want to buy another Fitbit because I feel like I'm going to have it for a year and something's going to happen.
I've had this one for not forever. I had this one for a long time because I used to
Yeah,
get
that's what
like
I usually
knockoffs.
hear. Yeah.
Yeah, and
And
this has
I
lasted me
can't,
so long.
I can't ship lithium batteries over here. Via Amazon won't send me anything with it. I don't remember how I got it. I think I got it right before we came, and now I'm like, ugh, well, now so I have nothing. But I always kind of wondered how those were accurate heart rate tracker anyway when the thing
I
is on your
know.
wrist.
I always wondered that too. I don't know how good it is. Like right now, it's saying my heart rate is 75,
Yeah,
and I'm just
like I
sitting
would.
here.
I remember I would flip it around when I was doing cardios because in my mind I was like, if those little sensors are on the bottom of my
Yeah,
wrist where my
that makes
actual like
sense.
veins are, maybe
Yeah.
it'll get it better. I don't really know, but I do like the idea. And then I see people who are really serious about tracking their heart rate have like a chest monitor.
Hmm.
Have you seen people wear those?
Yeah.
So anyway, I want to get some kind of. I want to actually watch because I've been doing it the old fashioned way. I'll just hold on
Hmm.
there for. And at first, I was holding my fingers on my neck on that vessel on your neck for 60 seconds and counting for the whole 60 seconds. But I realized that probably wasn't actually super accurate because in those 60 seconds I was recovering. So what I did was I tracked it for like 10 to 20 seconds and then just multiplied it to get to 60 to see, and that
Hmm.
gave me a higher heart rate. So I don't know, it's interesting. I would like to actually have a heart rate monitor because I would like to see what it gets up to. And then I would like to actually start tracking how quickly it comes back down.
Hmm.
Because that's a good measure of cardiovascular fitness and health too, in terms of like progressive overload for cardio, like
Yeah.
seeing how quickly you can recover. But I don't think I can get anything like that anytime soon. So I just have to hold
Yeah.
tight and do it the old fashioned way.
Yeah, I used to do like I think it was Beachbody where they had you do like tests before you did the program. And
Yeah.
one of them was you were supposed to like do, I don't know, 2 minutes of jumping jacks and then check your heart rate and then check it again after a minute and check it again after a minute and like see how long it took you
Huh.
to get back down to baseline.
Did you see, by the way, that Beachbody, now their body, how they took away their basically like their affiliate program?
Yeah. Yeah, I
Like they
did.
completely took it away. So everybody, every single person, regardless of status, just got their business pulled out from under them.
That's why it's not your own business and
It's
it's not.
not. I always wondered why people would say that it was their own business when it was not. No, you're just like
No.
you work for this company, and they laid everybody off is what happened.
Yeah, basically. Basically.
It's very
Yeah.
interesting, and I've been curious because I know that there's at least two that I can think of that for some reason I started following them a long time ago, and they'll still pop up in my feed. But knowing that they're Beachbody coaches, and they've really made a name for themselves, and they make good money, doing it. And I've been like checking out their profiles to just kind of see. I'm really curious to see what, because some people, you just you curse a little bit and then you move on because maybe you were making some money and enjoyed the process, but it wasn't your whole life. But these people have literally built their lives around the money that they make. And I mean, just total like top of the tier, have all these people under them and have somehow been able to maintain it
Yeah.
and gotten the Lamborghinis and the limousines. And then they show the Beachbody events that they go to and like standing in
Yeah.
front of the plaque where they have their top 10 earners and they're number one or number two. Like, and you're like, this is really like the 0.1% of people in like these MLM schemes that actually make it to the top.
Yeah.
And to have it completely like from one day to the next, like, oh, sorry, never mind, we're not doing this anymore. Like, what are
That's
you
crazy.
going to do? you know?
Yeah. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I hope
But
you
I
save some
think,
money.
and especially with this person in particular, I think that the social media following that they've gained and the I guess like respect that they've gained from certain people of being somebody that they can go to with health and fitness, if they're smart about it, they can pivot to like, well, I'm just a nutrition coach and a health coach and stuff like that on my own, and maybe gather a
Yeah.
couple certifications to back it up and just keep on chugging along. But
Yeah. That
crazy.
sucks.
Yep.
I had a study that I brought today
Cool.
about maintaining gains when you reduce frequency. So, how much do you have to actually work out to maintain the muscle that you've built? Because I feel like
It's
that's a
not much.
common question. No, and this one is about specifically concurrent training. So that means resistance training with aerobic training. So to keep both of them. So 12 weeks of concurrent training improved muscle strength, size, and aerobic power. A reduced frequency of once every 7 days maintained muscle strength, size, and aerobic power. So
Once
once
every 7 days,
seven
once a
days,
week.
once a week.
Yep.
Training once every 14 days preserved 90 to 95% of the adaptations over the next 12 weeks. So
Wow.
almost all of it, even just training once every 2 weeks, right?
Nice.
And then afterward, another 12 weeks led to losses of all adaptations except muscle strength.
Another 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. So I think that
Interesting.
means like another 12 weeks. So the so in other words, if you did this for only 12 weeks of time, you're not like, if you take that break for that 12 weeks of time and you work out once a week for 12 weeks, you basically maintain everything. And
Right.
if you did it for another 12 weeks, you would lose most of it. Except your muscular strength, the strength sticks around.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Is
I
that
did
crazy?
I did remember reading something about it was around 6 sets per week per muscle group. And you could
Mhm.
totally do that, I guess, in like one day a week. I could see how you could do
Yeah.
that.
I think it's good, it can go as low as 3 depending on like how much you have, I think.
Mm-hmm. That's really
Um
cool.
So, for example, studies on untrained men show that reduced resistance training volume by 66% can preserve muscular strength and hypertrophy for up to 32 weeks after 16 weeks of strength training. So these are previous studies. So that's
Mm-hmm.
just on that part, not on the concurrent training. And then endurance performance can be sustained for up to 15 weeks, even when training frequency is reduced to just 2 sessions per week, or when total exercise volume is cut by 33 to 66%, as long as intensity remains high.
So that's what, twice a week?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I've always, if anecdotally, I have noticed that there's obviously been times in my life where I've done a lot more cardio, and then there's been long periods of my life, especially more recently, like in the last 5 to 10 years, where I've done hardly any. Like I've just been so focused on strength training. And but when I do something cardio, like I used to jog a lot. I used to jog with my mom, and there's a loop we would do around my neighborhood, and it was 3 miles. It was 3 miles without just the regular loop, but then there was a way to add to it to make it 5. And I could do the 3 no problem. The 5 only if I was like really feeling it or we were in a really good conversation. I would do the 5 with her. And that was for a period of time when I was living with her. And then I stopped all running, all cardio, really focused on strength training. But then I ended up moving. This was like one of those times where I kind of noticed the difference. I ended up moving back in with my mom for a period of time, and we did that run. And even though I hadn't jogged, and it was like years in between, not a lot, maybe like 1 to 3 years in between. I'd have to really think about it to remember. But I was able to run the whole 3 miles, no problem. Even now, if I just got up and went for a jog, I could run 3 miles, no problem. Jog three
That's
miles, no
crazy.
problem. And I just
That's
find that interesting because it might feel a little harder the first time, but
Yeah.
right away I'm like, and it's doable.
From what I think I mean, everybody's probably different, so it probably depends on the
Mm-hmm.
person. So for me, it would go really quickly because I'm not like my endurance isn't my thing. But I think generally your muscle sticks around a little bit longer than the aerobic.
Uh huh.
Yeah, but I feel like you can you can improve in that faster
In what?
in like your aerobic capacity. I don't know how you want to say it.
Yeah, you think so?
Yeah, I feel like you can improve that really quick. I guess you can add reps and weight to things too, but the building muscle part though, I feel like that takes a lot longer.
You know what's interesting? Just something I've been thinking about when you say like your endurance is not your thing, like your strength. I've been really diving headfirst into a lot of stuff by Dr. Stacy Sims. So she specifically studies women
Mhm.
adaptations to strength and endurance and all that stuff, and fitness and nutrition. And her tagline is "Women are not small men." So there really are a lot of differences in women, and really advocating for more research and women specific things, in regards to the stuff that we see and hear and learn about fitness and nutrition and how it affects our bodies. But one of the things that I learned by reading her books and seeing her things is that women are natural. I don't know if it was born with more type 1 fibers or
Mhm.
just with better type 1 fibers. Like basically we're literally
Yeah.
made for endurance, whereas men are born with more type 2 fibers. And that we can train them though. Like, so when you look at an untrained woman and man, you have those obvious differences in ability. But then when you take a woman and train her specifically for power and strength, that we can actually develop almost the same amount and strength of type 2 fibers. But I find it interesting that because obviously nobody's the same, right? So even when we're talking women and men, you're going to have variations in all of that in terms of hormones and fluctuations and all these things. But I wonder if we were to actually study your muscle fibers, you know what I mean? And maybe not now, maybe at birth, I would have liked to seen that
Yeah.
because now you've trained them so well. But I wonder if you were just born with naturally more of that
I
proclivity.
I think so. Like I think so. Like who it was probably passed on to me from my, grandparents because they must have, you know, trained for that, not trained, but back then, they must have showed their body that they needed to be strong, and that was passed down to me eventually, and I got more of those muscle fibers.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I
Yeah.
find that really interesting.
Yeah.
And
So
even like you sent me a video of you playing the football with Caleb, just chucking the ball. And while I
yeah.
was watching you, I was just like, you just look athletic. Like you just
Yeah.
look like one of those sporty athletic people. And
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting because I look, and I think I've talked about this before, but like when you look at kids and just some are just naturally athletic. Like my
Mm-hmm.
nephew is, he's just fast. He runs on the balls of his feet. He's any ball you give him, he throws with accuracy. And it's
Yeah.
crazy. And then my son is somewhere in the middle. He's not the opposite end, but he's also just not as athletically gifted. Like he's got
Yeah.
some goofy habits that you have to like rewire, whereas like my nephew does not. And then, so my nephew's the same age as my son, which is why I compare them, because when we get together and do sports and stuff, it's so interesting to like play sports with him because he's legit competitive in any sport. You pick up a ball, I'll play around with my nephew, and he's like actually really good.
Yeah.
Instead of like having to pretend you're not that good in order to like, no, he's actually
Yeah.
competitive. But then his little brother, who's the youngest, he's only 4 now, but he was like, he came out running on the balls of his feet. I swear, like he's built the same way as his older brother. And just watching him run at 4 years, he doesn't even really, he plays t-ball, but he doesn't really play sports yet. And you can already see like he knows how to throw a ball, he knows how to hold a ball. And
Mm-hmm.
I find that really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Because no one taught me how to throw a football. I just threw it. And it's
Yeah.
just, yeah, it's just like natural. A lot
Yeah.
of it's natural.
Yep. And then you have those in between. Like me and my son, I feel like are both in between. Like we have to be taught, but once we're
Mhm.
taught, we can usually get pretty
You can
decent
learn
at
it.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then you've got the other end of the spectrum too. You've got people that like they don't
Yeah.
even they're not
Yeah.
like even aware that they have feet and like what they're
Yeah.
supposed to do with them. Like it's just so funny.
Yeah. I wouldn't say that my mom is athletic, right? So my mom didn't get that ability, but her family is.
Hmm.
And my dad was really fast and very athletic and played a lot of sports. So I
Hmm.
got it from both sides, even though my mom wasn't, but her family was.
Yeah.
Wayne Wayne is like he's in the middle. He's like the like you're talking about people. Like he's not super uncoordinated. He can do things. When I watch
Hmm.
him like throw a football, I'm not like, oh, I can't believe that's what I'm married to. You know.
Ooh, I really married down.
Yeah.
That's what
But
I married. You
that's
would. That would be
that's
something with how much pride you take in your athletic ability.
that's
You
how
would
I
look
would
at him and be
feel.
like, what did I do? Thank
What,
God, Wayne.
Laura?
Whew.
Think about your choices.
Right. You scraped by.
Right? So but he's just not like he's not special, he's just like in the middle like you said. And I think Caleb right now is in the middle in that, yeah, like he can learn, but he's not overly athletic either.
Yeah. Well, you know what something else I've been thinking about in terms of like that kind of general zone is in Taekwondo, I've had to my next kick. So he teaches kicks in like progressive order. So the kick that I'm
Yeah.
working on is called a tornado kick. So I basically have to do a roundhouse and then I have to immediately lift my opposite leg up, spin in the air and kick again. And which
Hmm.
I could do on my right side way better than my left. My left, it's like I know what to do. And my friend keeps telling me, you have to turn your foot and land this way. I'm like, I know it. My body won't do it. Like
Yeah.
I don't know what to do to get my brain to coordinate the movement once I go on my left side. But the other thing I've noticed is that so the master, now that I can do it, he wants me to do it like 3, 4, 5. And sometimes when we're out like sparring with the pad, he'll have me go like 5 to 10 times in a row, just spinning tornado, spinning tornado. And after only about 3 of them, I get so dizzy that the room is spinning. And maybe I need to add, I get the impression that the other people don't get the same dizziness that I do, just based on the way that they land, or they don't have to, I'll have to stop and I kind of go like this, and then I'll like do
Yeah.
another one, and then I stop, and the whole room is spinning. And
Hmm.
I've linked it to, because I get motion sickness, and they say that motion sickness is like an inner ear something, and it really has more to do with balance than it does like anything in your stomach, really. And so I started to think, I wonder if those are connected. I wonder if I'm just a little bit less balanced.
Yeah. Did I ever tell you when I was a kid that, I had vertigo really badly?
No.
So I have terrible vertigo. It would happen when I played basketball. So
Oh, yeah, you did tell me that.
yeah, I was in like fifth grade-ish.
And there was one thing that happened where your vertigo caused you to fall or something?
Yeah, and it had never happened before that. That was the first time. So I didn't know what was happening. And I just made a steal. I was dribbling down the court, and all of a sudden, and with my vertigo, it's not just like the room is spinning, but the my like proprioception is off. So the floor wasn't where the floor was supposed to be. And so it looked really funny because I'm like, I felt like I was walking on like a floor that was going like this. So I would like step
Weird.
and my foot would hit sooner or later than I thought it would. And eventually just like fell on my face. And they like, everyone was like, whoa, what the hell was that? Right. And I
Yeah.
was super embarrassed because I was like, I don't know what just happened. And people made fun of me. And then at the like end of the year at the party, like the party we had, someone had that on film and they made me watch it over and
Oh my
over
goodness.
again. Making fun of me. But that was like a thing that held me back for a long time because anytime I would play
Mhm.
basketball, that I could feel it when it would start to happen and I would pull back so it wouldn't, and I couldn't give things the proper intensity and be able to work as hard as I wanted to, and it was always super frustrating.
Did you end up linking that to your fibro though?
Mm-mm.
No. Okay, those aren't connected.
No, but maybe the gene mutation that Jules has,
Hmm.
because one of the things that the gene mutation that she has, if I have that gene mutation, that's one of the things that is a possibility. I forgot what they called it.
Huh.
Yeah. So I might have that
Interesting.
gene mutation and
But
not
her
even
gene
know it.
is that gene is that the gene mutation that's connected to her autism?
But that doesn't mean every time you have that gene mutation that you have autism.
Right. But it's also linked to that like do you still get vertigo and stuff like that?
Like today actually actually just happened today. I was racing Caleb and Wayne up the stairs. I took the elevator, I took the stairs. When I got to, it was 5 floors up. Once I got to the fourth floor, I was like, oh, I need to stop. And I had to like walk
Interesting.
up the rest of the way because I was going to fall on my
Yeah.
face. Because I
Well,
get
and
all this like
I
weird
doubt that
feeling.
these are connected, but I'm also really, when it comes to the form for Taekwondo, like memorizing the form, and it's almost like
Yeah.
choreography and dance. I'm like really bad at it. I cannot, it's really hard to remember. Whereas some people, like my son has like a photographic memory and he can see, he's really good at spelling tests and math because he just sees it once and he remembers what it is. And he's
Yeah.
really good at form. He like can see it in his head and he can do it. And I
Yeah.
can't do that.
Yeah. Interesting.
It's all very fascinating.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about my post on Instagram.
Oh, I'm like, what are you talking about? I
The
don't know what you're
one,
talking
the
about.
one about the
The one.
sugar and the food dyes.
Yeah, okay. We
Are
can
you
talk
are
we can
you
talk
are
about
you
that.
prepared?
No, but we can
Cool.
talk about it.
It's my favorite way. So to give some background, I made a post and it was funny because like I wish you could have been like in my head when I was doing it because when I was in the grocery store trying to pick out which juice I was going to get for my kids this event at his school, I quickly pulled out my phone and I thought to myself, I should make this might be interesting for other people to see. And then the very second thought was, no, it's definitely not. And then the third thought was, well, I didn't plan anything else for this week, so I better put out something. You know what I mean? So I was like, let's go. So I just did it. I just talked. As I was editing it, I was like, this, I mean, I didn't even put much thought in it. I was like, this is going to be one of those ones that gets like 0 views and 0 comments, and it's just going to like disappear into the oblivion. But hey, I was consistent. And the exact
That
opposite happened. Is that
that's
how it
what
always goes?
that's what people say all the time. I haven't had one of those posts, so I don't know what that's like. But that's what people say. They're like, my post is blowing up. It's one that I thought was going to get no views. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what
and
seems to
it's one
happen.
of those reminders to myself too that you better put thought into everything because if you misstep even once, because like in reflection, I think the misstep I made in reality that like if this, and I'll give myself credit, if I was actually trying to make an educational post about which juice you should pick for your kids, I would have brought up a lot more than what I brought up. But that wasn't my intent. My intent was like, hey, look at this. Like my only intent going into the store was like, I don't want to load these kids up with any more sugar than they're already getting. I would
Yeah,
like to like minimize the impact of the sugar. And wow, look at this. I thought that the high C was going to have the most sugar, and it actually turns out to not. And like that was like the whole intention behind it. But it minorly blew up. I'm not gonna say it went viral because I think in order for something to be viral, it has to be like 1 million+ views, and mine was at like 55K or something. So
yeah.
it didn't, but it was a few hours of like stress.
Yeah.
right? Because it was like lots of comments and mostly negative. There was definitely some good ones and, blah, blah, blah. But there's a lot of people that come to say, and there was two main arguments that were happening on this post. The two main arguments, one were about added versus natural sugar. So the post was there were three juice options that I had. I had High C, which was a very flashy and very cheap product. Then I had Honest, which was the most expensive product and the least, ingredients and all of that stuff. It was the one that appeals to like the health conscious person. And then I had the Minute Maid, which was the in the middle choice in my mind, which was still nice marketing, 100% fruit juice, but it was middle ground in terms of price. And I live on the grocery store I go to is on a military base in South Korea, so that's why because people were commenting too, like the Honest juice prices in my town are $8. So the fact that you only have to spend three. So like stuff like that, which is, it's because I'm on a military base. And that's also why my choices are very limited. I literally only had three. People were saying, oh, go get the Kool-Aid or go get I was like, I didn't have any of those options. I had these three. Like these were my choices. But I ended up choosing. So I assumed when I first walked in that the High C was going to have the highest sugar and that the Honest was going to have the lowest and that the Minute Maid would have a medium amount of sugar. And so I went to grab the Minute Maid, but then when I actually looked at the labels, it turns out Minute Maid had the most sugar by far. It was double the amount of sugar than the High C, and the High C ended up only having 2 grams of sugar less than the Honest juice. So so I was making this thing like, look at the marketing that they did. I wasn't thinking about additives. I wasn't thinking about whatever. And that's what a lot of people would say was one, the added versus natural sugars. And then the other argument that people were making, well, you have to look beyond the sugar. What about food dye? What about all these like additional ingredients? And then you and I had this whole side conversation on the side, which was, oh my gosh, like I could
I
not.
I was like sending Jamie stuff and like pissing her off and then laughing hilariously, or thought it was hilarious and laughing because she was getting so flustered.
Yeah, I was and it was funny because Laura and I we'll have a lot of political discussions, and you will get flustered in those, and I don't, and I don't know why. It doesn't. I have no problem sleeping at night. Like we could get really heated right before bed, and I can like turn off my phone and be like good night, and no problems.
Yeah.
But for you, sometimes it crosses the line where you're like, I really can't even do this anymore. Um, and we laugh about that. Like I feel like we have a really good like banter and back and forth and understanding of each other and the way we process things. But I told you in that I was like, I understand how you feel now because there's no way I'm going to be able to sleep right now. I was like, I'm either going to delete this post or this better slow down because I can't sleep right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I wanted to talk about those though, the added versus natural sugars and the food dyes, because you and I think it's like a Venn diagram. We overall view this fitness and nutrition and all that stuff like very similarly, but we have these outlying difference of opinions on things. And so what was your general like thoughts about all of that?
Well, first off, like if somebody so when you first put out the post, my first thought was and like you just explained it now, I didn't, knowing the context, it sounds different because when I first saw the post, I'm thinking like people are going to see this and they're going to think like, oh, High C, that's the way to go, like that's the healthy drink. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so the thing is that it doesn't really matter. Like the thing we agree on is it doesn't really matter as long as you're getting like 80% of your calories from whole foods, then these things aren't a big deal anyway. So it's kind of like arguing over something that's like, what's worse? A douche or a turd, like which one's worse? Like
Yeah.
so like trying to like it's not that big of a deal. But for me personally, I believe that if I was making that choice, I'm going to choose the thing that's as closest to real food as possible. So I would choose the Minute Maid because the Honest would probably be a lot more money, and it is just more money because it's organic, and it's less sugar because it's more water. Right? So you can always water down the other one if you wanted to. So I would choose that one because the ingredients are water and apples, whereas the other one is like fake food. It's like
Yeah.
art. It's like there's no like there is a little bit of juice in there, but it's mostly like artificial food that was made in a lab. And for me, it makes more sense to get the thing that's as closest to food as possible.
Well, I'll get to give High C credit. The first two ingredients were real juice. It was 100% apple juice, and then it was like 100% pear juice, and then water, and then
Okay.
a couple, and then obviously more things.
Okay.
Even, and this was somebody pointed this out in the comments that I actually didn't realize, because I was like, because one of the things I was actually surprised at was that the Minute Maid had 19 grams of sugar for a tiny little juice box. 19 is a lot. I think the recommended added sugars for kids is like 20 grams. So in a box of juice, you're getting like your entire sugar's worth, right? But what surprised me is that Honest juice does not taste good. Like, it does not taste delicious. It tastes like watered down juice, exactly what it is. But High C does taste delicious, but their sugar grams are so similar. The Honest was 8, and I think the High C was 9 or 10. It's because they add sucralose in it. It has like an artificial sweetener.
Artificial sweetener. Yeah.
I didn't actually realize that.
And high fructose corn syrup is a little sweeter, isn't it? I mean, the sugar content is, I don't know if you compare, like if you compare grams of sugar, but it's from high fructose corn syrup, I don't know if that would be sweeter. It might be. Like taste.
I think it is sweeter, high fructose corn syrup. But there was what I found interesting too was the conversation you and I had. Now again, and it was funny because somebody commented on there, like, you call yourself a nutritionist, but yet you're something about like you're judging the health of a juice based purely on its sugar content. I was like, I never said in here I'm judging the health of the. I guess I could see you can make that leap, but like again, that wasn't. I'm just anyway. Put more thought into your content, Jaime. Like, just make sure that you are very, very thorough whenever you're like discussing things. But it was interesting talking to you about it too, because of the different perspectives you were coming from. So from my perspective, because one of the arguments I was making was I could have made the post the same exact way, except flipped it. I could have been like, okay, let's look at these two. We've got Minute Maid and we've got Honest. And one has 19 grams of sugar and one has 8. So you might think that I'd go for the 8, but in reality, they both are clean ingredients. So why would I pay like more money for this one over here when they both don't have food dyes? They both don't have artificial. They're both natural juice. Of course, I'm going to get the Minute Maid. And people would have come in the comments being like, but the sugar's twice as much in the Minute Maid. Like, how do you call yourself a nutritionist when you're not looking at the sugar? Like, there's two different, almost like completely different points. And mine was like, I was going in there trying to get a lower sugar option. And my reason for that was, and somebody might say, if you're already doing a holiday where there's a lot of sugar, why do we even care about sugar at that point? Sure, I can, totally valid point, and that might be your angle. My angle is I'm going to try to minimize the impact. For the same reason, you might stop your kid from eating 10 pieces of Halloween candy and only allow them 5 because you're trying to minimize the impact. That was my intention. I'm trying to minimize the impact of like how much sugar we're consuming. And for me, my family, none of us has any adverse side effects to additives. We don't have any adverse side effects to food dyes. We don't have any adverse side effects to artificial sweetener. And the amount that's in the juice is such a tiny amount that it does not, we don't have any impact, like does not impact us. I don't notice anything. And I know that your argument would be like that it could build up over time. But the reality is we have 0 studies that actually show that. And so this is where it gets interesting with me and you. We don't have any actual evidence that supports the fact that these additives are dangerous in very small amounts. Because again, going back to the argument, we don't drink juice all the time. If you're drinking juice all the time, we might be having a different conversation. But this is a very once in a while type of thing. And so for me, and we do have loads of evidence about the negative impacts of extremely high sugar on people in general, but children as well. And so for that is kind of part of the reason why that is my mindset going into my juice choice, right?
Yeah. And I mean,
just
that's
that
why.
sigh.
And that's why, like, it's not really it's not worth arguing about, because it isn't like you do it all the time. So if you're lowering the toxic load, it's not really that big of a deal. But my argument was, I don't want to be eating food. I'm gonna minimize that as much as possible that is made from petroleum, Like, I don't want that in my food. And then Jamie goes, I don't care about the petroleum. I care about the sugar. Who cares if there's petroleum in the food?
But again, it's like petrol. So the petroleum thing is like that's how they make food dyes, right? It's
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
a similar process, whatever.
yeah.
Do you know how many things are in our food that I could play that with like that game? It's again where like the dose makes the poison, and then I go to. Are
But
you
that's
telling me? And I know for you specifically because Caleb responds to red food dye, and that's a whole other piece of this that I wanted to touch on. But for a lot of people that are making that argument, do you never eat M&Ms? Do you never eat like salmon that is fed like red? And that's where we go. Like, do you know how much this stuff is in your food already?
but exactly, that's my point. So you're saying you want to lower the minimize the sugar as much as possible. I want to minimize that as much as possible because people are getting it everywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
And the studies are done on like little like amounts. They're not doing it on like, well, you got it over here and over here and over here and over here.
what do you mean they're done on little amounts?
Like the amounts that they will do these studies on are like like I small servings of things.
Well, then how do we have evidence that shows that, like, for example, like aspartame, the negative effects of aspartame in the gut are seen when you have the equivalent? It's somewhere like 20 to 30 Diet Cokes per day for an extended period of time. Like, then how do we figure out that data?
I don't know. But but what I'm saying is that you're getting it from like all these different sources, and most of the time like people are just looking at like, well, this one thing here.
Uh
But if you're
huh.
getting this one thing here, and then you're getting this other thing over here, and this other thing over
But
here,
again,
and
it
this
comes
other thing
back
over
to the
here.
big picture of like, if you are eating
I
a 90% whole foods diet, then why are we even worrying about it?
I know, that's what I'm saying that we agree on, which is why it's
Right.
not worth arguing about.
Exactly. But yet we're arguing, Laura. We're not arguing. We're having a conversation for the pod. Because this is a good one.
This is how
Because
we
I think
talk
that
to
was the
each
other
other.
thing about the post. I was like, dudes and dudettes, I do not ever feed my kids juice. My kids' fiber content is triple that of
Yeah.
probably your own. Like,
Yeah.
stop it. You
Yeah.
know?
But people don't know that from your post.
And so, but well, okay, so okay, that was fun. Haha, we showed a little bit of our difference in opinions, but there was a couple points I wanted to bring up too that I haven't maybe talked to you about. One is that so you and I continue to have a conversation about
Haha, that was
food
fun.
dyes and how you actually do notice adverse side effects to red dye 40 in specific with your son, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
you said it's like very apparent.
Yeah, the red 40, anything that's blue, like if there's some kind of blue coloring in it, anything
Uh-huh.
that's, I don't know, I noticed it in purple things, so I don't know if they put them together like red and blue to make purple.
Well,
Um
duh.
but no, I don't know if there's like a purple one. Um
Oh.
you
I
know.
just assumed they have red,
Yeah.
blue, and yellow, and they combine them in different amounts to make all the
Yeah,
different colors.
I would assume. But like I've never noticed it in like a purple thing where it said like the ingredients, but I notice it happens when he has like purple things too. So anything like red, blue, purple, um yellow, I haven't really, but yellow is supposed to do that too. But it might just be that he hasn't actually had anything with that in it. But yeah, not even like a small Jolly Rancher, like those mini Jolly Ranchers. He has one of those and he goes insane.
Yeah, that's it's
It's
so
it's such a minuscule amount.
that conversation was interesting because um my argument is I hear you and that's valid, but it's such a small population of people. But you were saying, but it might not be. That just might be the population of people where it's obvious. The other
Yes.
could be like small things where you just don't really notice it, but it builds up over time.
Yes.
But again, I would argue that like in the grand scope of, a 90, 80, 90% whole foods diet, if it's not impacting a kid's behavior or studies or etc., then what does it really matter? It's like the dose makes the poison again. Like, yes, if you're sensitive to those, if you have adverse reactions
But
to
then
those,
why would sugar
100%
matter?
avoid it. But couldn't
Then
we
why
say
would
that
sugar
for
matter?
what'd you say?
Then why would sugar matter?
What do you mean?
Like, why would we care about the sugar amount in there if the dose makes the poison and they rarely have sugar?
Right? I mean, valid. but then, well, then it doesn't matter what juice I choose. Then I might as well just get the cheapest, which was the high C anyway. I think that was part of it. Just like high C was the cheap. If I don't care about any of this stuff, then I'm just gonna get the cheapest one because I care about my wallet.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, but in fairness, the conversation with you that did make me realize too, though, that because sugar, we do in terms of negative health outcomes, we have way more studies that support the negative effects of too much sugar in a child's diet or person's diet in general. And mainly what that is dental, obviously dental issues, risk of insulin resistance, obesity. And the obesity risk really comes when the added sugars from calories are the added sugar, the calories associated with those added sugars are going above what your normal, like maybe calories should be for your activity level, right? So we get into obesity risk.
I have things to say, but you can keep talking.
Well, so we got the dental, insulin resistance, obesity. Secondary would be like lack of nutrients if those high sugar foods are actually fitting within your calories. So say a kid eats like 1,500 calories in a day. If half of those are coming from high sugar foods, then you're losing nutrients. If you're eating 1,500 calories a day of whole foods and then an additional 1,000 calories a day of sugar, then we're into like obesity and insulin resistance, like dangers, right? So that's kind of like the big picture. But there's actually not, we always talk about like the sugar high and stuff like that with kids. I don't know if you agree with this, but I was reading that there's actually really not evidence that shows a big behavior change when kids are overdosed on sugar. But this all kind of led me to an actual thought that because the juice that I was buying was for a class event, if it was just for my own kids for something, I would probably still choose the high C. But now after talking to you about your kids' like adverse effect to the red dye, in the future, I actually probably will just choose the juice that doesn't have any additives for those scenarios. Because I was imagining Caleb being in a classroom environment, getting like Jolly Ranchers and high C. And of course, he's going to eat them because he doesn't understand why he shouldn't. So he's going to do it anyway. And guess who gets to deal with the consequences of that? You, when he gets home,
Yeah. And the teacher. Yeah. But actually, it doesn't always happen right away. So it's probably more me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the other part is that because I know that I wouldn't get the one with all the additives for that reason.
Right.
Even if he didn't have, even if it was like Juliana's class where it doesn't seem to have the same effect on her. But the point about the studies is that we have so many more studies on sugar. Like it's studied more. We don't have all the studies done on all these additives. And in the way, we can look this up, but I'm pretty sure the way it works is that the companies that want to put these in there, they're responsible for doing the studies. They're the ones that are paying for these studies that are saying that this is good or bad.
Not always.
And they're the ones responsible for giving that to the FDA.
See, I don't know. That's where I want to. You're making me want to like look that up more. I don't know if that's definitely sometimes true.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's always true. And those are the studies that we want to like either disregard or take with a grain of salt when you see like who it's funded by for sure.
Yeah.
But like I was reading a meta-analysis on this on dyes in general, and it was kind of concluding that somewhere around 8% of kids have like a response to the synthetic food dyes, have like a behavior response to synthetic food dyes. So that's definitely a thing. Sometimes people have adverse effects to fake sugars as well. Like what is the one that you react to in your gut? Erythritol?
Erythritol, sucralose does it too.
Yeah. But like people also have, adverse reactions to, dairy. Does that mean we should all be watching out because of dairy? Like we just consistently see that there are no adverse side effects for the majority of population in smaller doses. So why do we need to avoid them?
It's not food. Like, shouldn't we be aiming for closest to whole, like the high fructose corn syrup conversation we had?
Another one.
Like, it's like these things that they put in food are made to make you want to eat the food more. Like we talk about all the time, eating whole foods and apple juice itself isn't a whole food, but it doesn't have all the additives in it that makes you want more the same way. And I don't know. It just, I feel like all that stuff is not great to be consuming in our bodies.
Well, again, I agree with you on that. Like I agreed, right? Like that's where we agree. But again, if it's like such a low makeup, and then, so that's the other thing I wanted to come back to was, There was a big, and you and I didn't talk as much about this part, but I'm curious. So it is just apples and water, but it's still just the juice from the apple and
Mm-hmm.
water. So we are still, when you talk about, like, if you look up things about what is like the definition of added sugar, it juice falls into that because it is stripping everything else from the fruit away from it. So
Yeah.
for added sugars, it is literally all sugars, and I'm pulling this from something I read, all sugars added to food or drink or present naturally in unsweetened fruit juices, honey, or syrups. So even though they're there naturally, it's still considered added because it's literally just plain sugar.
Yeah.
So we're stripping everything else from the fruit away from it. So one of the things that people were asking me a lot in this thing, well, isn't it different that the Minute Maid is natural sugars and the High C has added sugars? And my argument is not really, because where the natural sugar argument really lies, and we can have a conversation about high fructose corn syrup and how that's a little bit different, but big picture, where the whole natural sugar argument really lies is natural sugars coming from fruit are good for you because of how they're packaged, because they're packaged with all the other nutrients and the fiber that the fruit has. Once you strip all that away, it doesn't really matter if it's natural or added because it's processed the same way in your body. Glucose, fructose, they're going to be processed the same way, whether they come from high fructose corn syrup, fructose from high fructose corn syrup, or fructose because it came from a banana, is going to be processed as fructose in your body.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Like if I see something that is made out of, I don't know, if something has added sugar in it compared to sugar, like an apple juice, I would say it's the same thing. Like, so if you add cane sugar, sometimes this is cane sugar or whatever to something, I
mm-hmm.
feel like that's the same thing as the juice. Um, High fructose corn syrup, I don't have the same feeling about though.
Right. And that was an interesting conversation we had because high fructose corn syrup is, well, fructose in general is processed differently in your body than other types of sugar. So fructose is processed in your liver. And if you eat too much fructose, it can build up in your liver as fat and fatty acid, and can lead to fatty liver disease. Was like a whole other thing. But the amount of fructose in fruit isn't enough to actually provide that buildup. Whereas you take high fructose corn syrup, it's like somewhere in the nature of like 50 to 90% of high fructose corn
Yeah.
syrup is fructose alone. Whereas like fruit is like 40% or less of fructose. It compromises other sugars as well.
And it does something to your hormones, like your hunger hormones, and it makes you
Mm-hmm.
hungrier. It make it like yeah, makes you want to
Yeah.
eat more.
But again, it comes back to like, if we're limiting overall and we're just like focusing on 80, 90% crowding out with whole food diet, the effects of these things are like so minimal that do they really, right, even matter? And it all comes back to that. But the whole added versus natural sugars, like, yes, we want natural sugar, but you should be aiming to get natural sugars in natural foods. So if you're going to be somebody that approaches, in my opinion, your juice choice, thinking, well, I don't want added sugar, I want natural sugar, then don't get juice. Get an apple and literally have your child eat an apple and drink water. Like, that's what we should be doing 90% of the time.
Yeah, I agree with you with that.
Right.
Yeah.
Of course you do. You should. Anyway, it's just interesting. I like how we come at things from slightly different perspectives.
I wonder what this sounds like to everybody right now.
Me too. I can't. Would you comment below, please? Comment and add to this conversation, because honestly, first of all, the real reason I would love to have just like a ton of comments is because I would love to keep this conversation going off of Instagram.
Mhm.
I would love to keep this conversation going with like intelligent people who like would listen to this podcast and have an actual opinion. But also because the algorithm, that'd be great.
And the thing is, like, that we're not, like, especially like in this conversation, it would be me more. I'm not like a food fear monger. I'm not saying you can't eat
Right.
this stuff anytime. It's just like how I would evaluate which one
Exactly.
I would choose.
Well, one of my arguments too was that, like, you, Laura, are at a tier of nutritional understanding that you can evaluate more deep dive, evaluate that kind of content, because it's almost like you've earned the right because you understand nutrition from a big picture. But there's so many people out there that don't understand nutrition from a big picture. And I feel like we're picking at the wrong things. I feel like it's like mowing your grass when your house is on fire.
Yeah, the goal should be to just eat more whole foods.
Yeah, and stop obsessing about all of these
Yeah.
minutia, really. If you don't need to understand every single possible minimal impact of these sucralose food dyes or sugar or all these things, if we just shift the focus to 80-90% whole foods and how we can make that happen,
Yeah.
then
And
we're
it's,
going to be better off overall.
yeah. I mean, we always say 80 to 90. Do you know how
I
hard
know.
90 is? Do you know
Yeah,
how
and
hard 90
I
is?
know. Yeah.
So,
It's
so
not that
it is. So this week,
well.
this week, no, it was last week. I decided at this time of year, every year, I always have like some kind of experiment that I like to do. Like last year, it was eat as much protein like as humanly
Yeah, I
possible for me.
remember.
I was eating like 160, 170 grams of protein for like a couple months. And what happened was that I got freakishly strong and I didn't gain any weight, even though I was eating a ton of food.
Uh-huh.
This time, I want to see what happens if I eat 90% of my calories from whole foods.
Let's talk about this on the next one because I want to know what your qualifiers for that are going to be. Like,
Okay, but
how,
just
how,
one point. Okay,
uh-huh,
yeah, one point though. Okay, if I'm getting 90% of my calories from whole foods, and we
uh-huh.
can go over this next time. If I'm eating 2,000 calories, that's only 200 calories that I can have
Right.
that are not right. A protein shake is 100 calories. That leaves me 100 calories left. Basically, I'm eating only whole foods. It's
Yeah,
like,
and this is where I want to talk to you about what the qualifiers are going to be to qualify as a whole food or how
yeah,
to qualify as a
yeah, it
mid.
definitely depends.
Yeah, and I think you and I would have a different take on this because we've talked about this before, I think, with the client group about like what really constitutes as that and how do you know? I think somebody was beating herself up for eating yogurt because it didn't, in her mind, she's like, well, it's processed. And it's like, well, this is a whole can of worms. Like, so let's have that conversation because I would love to hear your qualifiers.
Yeah, I will.
Um, I was gonna add on to this with something. 1 hour, 3 minutes. Hold on, I was gonna say one more other thing. What was it? Did I have a? Anyway, I guess that was it.
You sure? It's the
No,
longest
there was
podcast
one
we've
other
ever
thing
done.
that I was gonna say, and I don't remember what it was.
Sorry if I made you forget.
No, that's okay. It's supposed to be like that.
I really
Oh,
want to know this.
this was it. The very last thing that I was going to say was that a handful of people, and I think most people understand this, but there were a handful of people that commented on this thing that were saying, no, the total sugar is 10 grams in the high C, but the added sugar was 9 grams, so it's actually 19 grams of sugar. So I just wanted to clarify that the added sugar is a subset of total sugar. So it's the total sugar and then the bullet points of where those total sugars come from.
Yeah.
So just to clarify, you don't add them together. The total sugar is the number, and then it clarifies
It's
where
like
the
when it
sugars come
says
from.
fat and then it says saturated fat and all the different kinds of fat. You're not adding that to the fat. The total fat is still the first thing.
Exactly. Yeah. So just to clarify that in case people didn't fully understand.
Yeah, I
that.
saw that a lot too. I looked at a lot of the comments on your posts.
Yeah.
I laughed
It was
at
kind of fun.
I laughed at one of the things you said. I don't know if you saw that
Because this one person kept calling me lady.
Lady.
She was like,
And
lady.
and eventually you're like, I really love when people call me lady.
Yeah. Get off your nutritional high horse. Put down the hot dog and the Coke. Well, you already have because you had to type that to me.
Lady.
Lady.
The Velveeta one made me laugh because I'm like, I bet you half these people have like protein powders and stuff when they're like saying stuff to you about having like, processed food, like no processed food ever as they down their protein shakes.
Yeah, this felt like a mini Velveeta all over again. That Velveeta crap went on for a long time though. This went on for, thankfully, it was like 3 or 4 hours of constant. Every time I opened, it was TikTok. Every time I opened TikTok.
It was only TikTok, right? Not Instagram.
It was only TikTok. I had a lot of comments on Facebook, but those were from people in my circle. TikTok was the one where, and I gotta give TikTok credit. I get the most interaction on TikTok. So I was kind of like, I don't love how this feels right now, but I'm the same, like, thanks TikTok for showing my video to people because Instagram doesn't do that.
No, Instagram has been a little
super
bad
finicky.
Words lately.
Yeah, lots of the bad words. All right. Good pod.
All right.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Let us know what you think of all this stuff in the comments. If you liked it, leave a review. We would appreciate it so much. Share it with a friend. Share it on your page. Anything you do to get the word out if you find this content and these conversations helpful. See you next week.
Bye.